Industrial IoT is not consumer IoT, especially when it comes to networking and devices not being permanently connected. Steffi and Phil are here to show us and tell us about the use of nested edge, which is a new feature of IoT Edge, to address some specific scenarios of industrial IoT networks. That's today on the IoT Show. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the IoT Show. Thanks for watching us. We will talk industrial IoT today, and more particularly networks. And for that, I have Steffi and Phil. We're calling from Europe. Hey, guys, how are you?
Hi, fine, thanks.
Thanks for having me. Let's go with some introductions to start with. So, Steffi, tell us about you. Who are you? Where are you calling from? And what are you doing in life?
So basically, I'm an IoT technical specialist from Germany, so Europe, as you already said. I'm in my 6th year at Microsoft, and basically I come from the very technical side. So I'm quite a geek. I'm the SME for Azure Percept, for example. And yeah, I'm also working a lot with Phil on industrial IoT topics, and I'm glad to be here.
Nice. How about you, Phil?
Hey, Olivier. Hi, Steffi. Yeah, I'm Phil. I'm an IoT architect in the Microsoft Technology Center in Munich, Germany. And my job is to help customers really understand the technologies that we have, particularly around IoT. And this is what this demo has come out of, is being able to show customers how we use nested edge in industrial environments.
Nice. So is it fair to say you both are on a day-to-day, engaging with actual customers in the industrial world, right? So you're what you're going to come up with today is a discussion around some of the particular aspects of industrial environments and how they affect IoT scenarios, especially when it comes to connecting devices with each other or to the internet, right?
Yeah, so, exactly. That's the topic.
Steffi, you put it really interestingly when we were discussing and preparing for this IoT show, and you had this the thing about consumer IoT is not equal to industrial IoT. So tell us a bit more about this, and how is industrial IoT, especially when it comes to networks, different from consumer IoT?
Yeah, exactly. Thanks, Olivier. So basically, there is a main difference between consumer IoT and industrial IoT when it comes to network isolation and also to actually the connection possibilities to the internet. So let's start with consumer IoT. So in consumer IoT, you have sensors that can connect to the internet, and you have maybe a lot of different protocols around there, or even a 5G connection or mobile phone or whatever. In industrial IoT, you have quite the opposite. So you have a very isolated network that is most of the time even consisting of different layers between the very bottom layer where there are the components of a machine or whatever, and the top layer where you actually have maybe connection to the internet. So it's a very, very restricted environment where we move in. And this is why in those environments where mostly shop floor customers are residing in, this is actually where IoT Edge shines. And in these environments, what's so special also is that the network perimeter fence is the one and only defense against hacking or whatever. So this is why it's so important for them to have a very isolated network with machines that are not connected to the internet at all times. And so coming back to these layers that I've already mentioned. So basically it's following the so-called ISA 95 architecture/standard, where you define multiple layers. So you can see here on the slide, it's typically 5 layers. And only the top layer, as I already mentioned, has connection to the internet. And the question that we get a lot from customers is, how can I actually keep what I have and what used me well for the last 20 years, but also use IoT Edge and the cool cloud technologies? So this is actually the
So that's interesting you're saying that, Steffi, because industrial IoT is maybe a new term, but having networks and interconnected devices that we call machine-to-machine connectivity is not new, and the industrial world actually has had that for some time. And we come up with like, hey, we need to connect all of that to internet to harness, all the data and extract the insights and so on. But in reality, yes, they have been doing investments in their infrastructures, and they don't want to change that. And one question I have before I let you continue is, ISA 95 is a standard. Do you know how long it's been around? Because that's something which is kind of relevant, because it's actually been there for some time. It's not something brand new, right?
Yes, so it's actually there. So it was actually first. So ISA 95 is a standard that's actually there for a long time already. And we are trying to adapt to the standard right now. So to actually use both worlds, so that the one that is already there and actually served manufacturing customers well, right? So defining the standard makes sense in these environments.
Love it. Since you're starting to say, how we are basically addressing that. So what are the solutions that we're bringing to the table, to address that situation of a network that is not totally connected to the internet, but still we want to control, visualize, and interact with these devices? Yeah,
exactly. So we released a service called Nested Edge for IoT Edge last November in public preview. And this is our approach to actually tackle with ISA 95 scenarios and the standard, so to actually be compliant to it. And what we provide with this nested edge technology sitting on top of the IoT Edge runtime is that we can first adhere to the network isolation, meaning the devices can stay disconnected even on the lower layers, and can talk to the top to the layer that is nearest to them in terms of hierarchy. But at the same time, we can fully address and control and manage those devices, even if they are not connected, through the cloud. Nice. And at the same time, it's possible to even establish a bidirectional communication between the cloud and the disconnected devices on the shop floor. However the customer wants. The only thing,
and all of that without breaking the firewalling between the layers, right?
Exactly. So we do not open additional ports, inbound ports, for example, on the lower layers, or we don't break up their firewall settings or something like that. So we really try to sit on top of what's already there and to integrate with that what's already there. We don't want to force customers to change their whole infrastructure to connect with the cloud or to manage the disconnected devices. So the reason for that is, so that's actually why we brought Nested Edge in. And what we actually see is quite the demand from customers to understand what we are trying to do, and to actually, we had a lot of customers, Phil and I, and where we tried this out already. When it was just released, after 1 week, we already had some customers engagements. They are really interested in the solution.
Nice. And we'll see in a minute how, right? Because Phil is going to chime in and will show us a nice demo of an actual infrastructure that he has in his little office there at home. That is basically an actual implementation with actual IoT Edge boxes and his own ISA 95 network. So Phil, tell us a bit about this demo you're about to show us.
Hey, Olivier. Yeah, so what we've built up over here in my home office is like you say, a representative industrial network. So what you can see on the slides here is how this maps. So we've actually gone and implemented with industrial PCs an edge implementation on layer 3, on layer 4, and layer 5, and those are separated by firewall rules. So it means that the upper layers, so layer 5, can't actually see down into the lower layers, and we've only punched very small holes into those firewalls so that the layer 3 edge, for example, can just very specifically speak to the layer 4 gateway, and then the layer 4 gateway up to the layer 5 gateway. So this is how it looks in practice. So we have here our layer 5, our layer 4, and our layer 3. And they are going to be effectively connecting and communicating through each other. So that means that this is making the hop over to L4, and L4 is making the hop to L5. That's one of the things that we want to show today. The other thing we want to show is actually when you have an industrial IoT deployment, manageability of the deployments is important. So we're going to show how layered deployments, a feature that's been around for a little while already, how that really comes into its own when we start looking at nested edge. Okay, well, let's see it. So if we just take a quick look into the IoT Hub, so we can see that we have our 3 devices here. They're all healthy and running. If we looked at, for example, a device in layer 4, we can see that there are a parent relationship has had to be defined. So we've already declared that needs to connect up to the next device. And then we've created a number of deployments that can be seen here. So this is the automatic deployment feature within IoT Hub. We can see that we have a few ones here called deployments. These are our standard ones, and that they've been applied to our devices. And then we see these new ones, these layers as well. So to actually understand what we have within these layers, and we can see we use everyone's favorite tool, Visual Studio Code, for that. So we can see our devices that are connected here. And then if we just have a look at, for example, the deployment for the nested edge, so this would be layer 4 and layer 3. And what we can see is that it looks pretty standard. There's only a few things that jump out if you're used to seeing this manifest. So, for example, we're no longer defining the Microsoft Container Registry. We're using this cryptic upstream keyword. So this just tells our nested edge to go up to its parent to ask for this container. We can also see that we're just having to, in the preview, just enable this functionality as well. Where things start to get interesting is if we look at the layers that get applied on top. So this is a far smaller manifest than you'd be used to in an edge deployment. And we really are just defining the delta on top of the base deployment. So in this case, what we're saying is my layer 4 needs to be able to support the lower device. And for that, we need this special container called the API proxy. So we need to additionally define that. And so we bring in these extra values. And the IoT Hub is clever enough to be able to then patch these 2 deployments together to create one single manifest that goes down to the device.
I like that. So Phil, let me ask you a question here real quick, because I see you looking into deployment manifest and VS Code and so on, but it triggers a question to me, which is, well, first, how many of these edge devices would we expect usually? Because there's a scaling question here. Like you're manually setting up some files here, but I would assume that in an actual setup, you have X many devices that you need to manage that might need specific configuration. So what is the scaling capabilities here, and how do you recommend customers do that deployment and configuration of these edge devices?
Yeah, so it's unlike consumer IoT, where you might see hundreds of thousands of devices. Typically in an industrial setting, you may see tens, but you may see hundreds of these edge devices, and that already presents that management nightmare or headache that you've already mentioned. So you can see here, I'm using tooling that's very much designed for developers. So in my IDE, I'm able to interact with it. But as with everything in Azure, you've got the APIs, you've got the ability to programmatically do everything that we're doing here as well. And so you build up then the layer on top, for example, operators to be able to manage this. But even within this development environment, it's actually pretty easy to start really interacting with the devices. So as one example, what we can see at the moment is that we have data coming in from our level 4 and our level 5. What we'd like to be able to do is perhaps let our layer 3 start sending some temperature data. And what we can do is actually use the module twin. So we're used to this concept of the device twin in IoT Hub, but every module in Edge has one as well. And what we can do for the simulated temperature sensor is just change the parameter, update that module twin. We get a nice successful message back there. And what we're showing here is, despite the fact that the layer 3 has no internet connection, it has to make these 2 hops, we're still able to, from a centralized location, from the cloud, we're able to interact and control this device. And we actually straight away, we see that we're starting to see in red data coming from level 3.
Yeah, and you were showing the interaction with device twin in the dev tool, but we have APIs that allows you actually to create your own application that the operator will be using. Hey, start sending data from that device, right? So there's going to be a button for him in some whatever interface or companion app, whatnot, that interacts with IoT Hub to set up that module remotely. So that's pretty interesting. You're showing the dev tool, but people need to think about it as a feature of an end-to-end solution that operators will be interacting with.
Yeah, absolutely. So exactly as you said, we're using those mechanisms to be able to do that from the dev tooling. But for example, you may have a UI that allows the operator to restart a module. And in the background, when they click that simple button, we will be sending via the IoT Hub, we'll be sending this direct method, for example, to be able to restart a module. And then that will allow the operator to actually affect the running of the device, but using user-friendly interfaces. It could be even a power app. It can be something on a mobile. It can be on an operator screen within the factory. But we're still using the same methods.
I see. Nice.
The last thing that I wanted to show here is we've shown how we can interact with the device. But a really powerful feature of the Edge, as well as the nested Edge that comes into its own on industrial settings, is the fact that it can store and forward messages. So if we have a connectivity issue, we're then able to recover from that gracefully and get all our messages in order, all being pushed through to the cloud. So if we have a look back at our devices, in the meantime, we've seen that our level 4 Edge, based on that restart, has actually started its numbering back from the beginning. Mm-hmm. But what we're going to do is simulate an unplanned outage. So somebody's come along, they've tripped over the cables, and they've knocked our 2 gateways out. What we can see in the data straight away is that we've lost our L3 and our L4. We're only getting messages from our level 5 Edge. Mm-hmm. That's fine. Somebody notices their mistake. You'd also, in a production setting, you'd set up some monitoring so that an alarm goes off so you can tell that the data is not coming through anymore. But in this case, they've recognized their mistake pretty quickly, and they plug back in. So I've just plugged in L3, and there we go. And I've just plugged in L4. And what we can see is straight away, all those messages in order are being pushed back into the IoT Hub, and the whole system just resumes as if nothing happened.
Nice. And because it's timestamped, like if you ingest that in a time series tool, like this, it's almost transparent. You've not seen anything there.
You can't see what's happened. You just see that the message sent timestamp, that's exactly as intended. It just gets received by the IoT Hub a little bit later.
Pretty straightforward demo, Phil. Thanks a lot for that. And Steffi for that explanation as well. So you guys put together a blog post that actually goes through all of that in more details. So we definitely invite people to go there. There's a GitHub repo as well for implementing similar demo, right, Phil?
Yeah, exactly. So particularly around the layered manifest, it's not always self-explanatory. And so what we've done is we've put all of the assets that we've used to create this demo. They're in the GitHub, and would love people to be able to use those.
Nice. So as always, feedback is welcome. Go check out the blog post down there. So aka.ms/IoT show/nested edge in IoT, like industrial IoT. Steffi, Phil, thanks a lot for today's presentation and demo. Really presented nested edge in a very interesting scenario. I look forward to eventually have you back on the show. And everyone, thanks for watching. See you soon. Bye.
Thanks, Olivier. Bye-bye. Thanks.